Is call your next witness, please.
Yes, my next witness is our planner, Steve Lydon from Burgis Associates.
Red light on? Yes.
You only have one mic?
Make it a good one. Mr. Lydon, if you mind, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you offer this evening is the truth, all truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. You are Stephen Lydon, spelling your last name, and you are 38 and spelling of your birthday. Sure. The last name is spelled Lydon, L-Y-D-O-N. I'm with a senior associate with Burgis Associates. That's B-U-R-G-I-S. We're located in Western New Jersey, and I'm here to offer planning testimony as a licensed planner.
And
Your microphone is working, Lenny. His is not. So I know you wanted to say something, but once you said, let's transfer so that we make sure we finish the line.
yes, Mr. Lydon, there are many people here from the township who might not have attended other meetings, and they do not know your qualifications, experience, and background. Although you have testified here before, could you please go over that for them?
Certainly. I'm a Rutgers University graduate. I have a degree in environmental planning and design. After graduation, I became a licensed professional planner. I hate to say this, but in the late 1980s, it did exist. I have held my license ever since then. Mr. Dare, please don't do the math.
Yes.
I'm also certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. That's sort of the national affiliation for planners. I have been on the board of a regional planning agency. I have been a planning director for about 11 years for a Morris County municipality, where I was also the zoning officer. And for the last 18 years or so, I have been at Burgis Associates, either testifying in front of boards like this one, or sitting with boards in a couple of municipalities, or testifying in court.
And did you also have experience with the county planning office?
Yes, I did for about 3 years at the beginning of my career.
Okay, unless there's more reason to hear Burgess' qualification, Mr. Burgess is obviously a qualified professional and expert.
That would be my boss, though.
Right.
This is why I'm obviously a qualified expert in the field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's say his credentials.
Mr. Lydon, with regard to the project in question, have you had an opportunity to view the site?
Yes, I have.
And have you had an opportunity to review the plans and the application that was submitted,
Yes,
including the request for numerous variances, is that correct?
that's correct.
Could you please tell the board your findings with regard to review of the area, the application, the plans?
Sure. In order to come to those conclusions, in addition to going to the site that I was familiar with, I've also reviewed the master plans that the planning board of Teaneck have adopted. I have also reviewed the reexamination reports that the planning board has adopted. And of course, I reviewed the zoning ordinance adopted by the mayor and council.
And have you also reviewed the planning report issued by this board's planner?
Yes, I have. There are two things sort of preemptive I want to mention before getting into the typical planning testimony. The first one, this lot is a little bit unusual. We always say that each lot is unique. This one is especially unique because there was a deed restriction placed on the property by the township of Teaneck in the early 1960s. And that deed restriction was sort of interesting. It was required as a subject of sale when the township sold it, and it required the use of the property be put to office or medical office space. And you might think, well, that's not so unusual, but it is because the zoning ordinance at the time had it in the RM zone. So even though the property was zoned for multifamily housing, it was sold to a particular doctor with the understanding it would be developed as an office building. So that's a little bit interesting, and we'll talk about that a little later. The other thing I want to mention to the board is I'm often here with applicants seeking a D1 variance. That's the traditional use variance. We're not seeking that today because we're in the RM zone and multifamily dwellings are permitted in the RM zone. So what we're seeking is a D, in the parlance of the industry, a D5 and a D6 variance. One is to exceed the density and one is to exceed the allowable building height. It's a huge distinction because in order to be granted a D5 or a D6 variance by this board, we do not need to show special reasons. For D1 variance, we would. The D5 and the D6 variance, and that's shorthand for 4055D-70, D1, D5, D6. For the 5 and the 6 variance, we need to show that the property can support the development irregardless of the fact that it's taller than the ordinance will allow, and we have to be able to demonstrate that the property can handle the additional density over and above what the ordinance will allow. That's a far different standard than special reasons. There was earlier testimony at earlier hearings. The property is on the south side of State Street, about 230 feet east of Queen Anne Road. It's a site that's fairly large. It's about 0.8 of an acre. It's rectangular. It's 115 feet deep and 300 feet in width along State Street. And that's sort of an interesting dimension for a lot. Typically, and I'm not sure where you all live, but typically your lot is deeper than it's wide. A typical traditional city lot was 50 feet wide, 100 feet deep. So it was twice as deep as it was wide. Here, that math is sort of flipped because we have a pretty wide lot, but not a very deep lot. And if you look at traditional housing in cities, especially older housing, the lot sort of became the framework for the dwelling, if it was a dwelling, that was constructed on the property. So you have houses which are relatively somewhat narrow, but longer. They followed and allowed what the property gave them. So it's no surprise that this property and this proposed development is doing the same thing. The building is wider than it's deep because that's what the lot provides. The other thing that's interesting about this property is what's currently on it. It's an old, obsolete, and I call it a dead office building. It is a U-shaped building connected by a second-story balcony or a walkway. It is aesthetically unpleasing. We do a lot of work for Hearts. They're tearing down buildings they built, office buildings that they built in the mid-'80s because they're obsolete. This building was apparently built in 1963, 64. It's an obsolete building. It's been abandoned by the marketplace. It is part of the fabric of the neighborhood, however, and I think there will be testimony that wraps that around later on. One of the big difficulties with this building as well, and we spent some time earlier with the engineer talking about ADA handicap parking spaces, and I'm sure the architect talked about accessible means of travel. This two-story office building, which sees a lot of medical patients, has no elevator. So it's not functional in today's world. It's not marketable. I'm sure you've heard that we're proposing a 5-story building. We've all heard testimony about the 68 dwelling units that are proposed. Part of that includes an affordable housing set-aside, which I want to get to later, and I want to compare that with what Teaneck has done elsewhere. We're proposing 100 parking spaces on site and 44 in a new municipal parking lot that the applicant is proposing in conjunction with the township to build across the street. Our testimony is parking stalls that we have proposed on site, 100 stalls, adequately and sufficiently services the 68 dwelling units proposed. Our testimony is those 44 parking spaces that we're proposing across State Street will be servicing the general public, which could include people coming to the subject building, probably not, and most of the time will serve the general residents of the area. I mentioned earlier, we are here with a proposed permitted use, multifamily housing. We are not seeking a D1 variance. To give you a little warning, I'll probably say that 3 more times, it's so important. Even though we're not here with a D1 variance, I think it's relevant for this board to hear what the master plan says for the community. And there was a master plan that was prepared and adopted by the planning board in 2007. It explicitly called for the encouragement and expansion of multifamily housing where there's no detrimental impacts on certain neighborhoods. And they say single-family neighborhoods. And the reason for it, the governing body, not the governing body, start that, excuse me, the planning board determined and realized that putting additional new multifamily housing where there already is existing multifamily housing is good planning practices for the township. What they specifically sought to avoid was putting multifamily housing in single-family districts, where the MR zone, excuse me, were surrounded by multifamily housing. They want to encourage multifamily housing in this area. They also seek to strengthen the vitality of commercial districts. This plan was written in 2007. Since then, something called Amazon has hit the universe. And I don't know how it's doing in Mars, but on Earth it's doing pretty darn good. And if you drive up and down main streets, and not just Teaneck or Teaneck Road or Cedar Lane, but Westwood Avenue in Westwood, where our offices are, Franklin Avenue in Ridgewood, or Pagoda, there are a lot of vacancies, bricks and mortars. And a lot of planners are spending a lot of time trying to how to repopulate those spaces. Well, one way to do it, quite frankly, this is no mystery, you put wallets on the street. You encourage housing in close proximity to the stores and restaurants and commercial spaces that have been built throughout the county. This does that. At the earlier part of my testimony, I said we're about 230 feet from Queen Anne Road. It's a beautiful little shopping area. It's got a wide road. It's got pedestrian crossings and has an uninterrupted sidewalk network. It's a good place to encourage pedestrian shoppers. People, for whatever reason, lost their incentive to go. The way to address that, first and foremost, is put feet on the street, wallets on the street, put people in close proximity to them. The other thing you do is you expand the permitted uses in those zones, and you find new uses to replace the hardware store that left, or the card shop that's gone. So I've got to believe that when the master plan talked about putting land uses like multifamily housing in places like this and other places where there's surrounding multifamily, it was because of the consistency and compatibility between the new uses and the old uses, and it's also because those places in Teaneck, by and large, have developed close to commercial areas. In this case, we're 230 feet from Queen Anne Road, or a few more feet from Teaneck Road. We're in the middle between two commercial areas. One of the recommendations besides additional multifamily was the need to be responsive to marketplace and changing needs and encourage infill developments. The other problem, besides confronting contemporary planning, besides the Amazon effect, is in the 1980s and 90s, we built lots of office space. Now we need to figure out how to repopulate those office spaces. Because, gee, I mentioned Amazon earlier, they didn't go to suburban Parsippany, suburban Lane, Mahwah, New Jersey. They were talking about going to Long Island City, New York. They're not the first ones to go there. Google's already there. So we have a problem with a lot of office space that is technologically obsolete. It's very difficult and expensive if you can provide ADA facilities, and then the marketplace doesn't want exurban or suburban office space. So the master plan saw that as an issue in 2007 and said, we need to be responsive to those marketplaces. It's relevant to this application because there is a vacated, obsolete, older office building, dead office building on this site. And your 2007 master plan recommends that the township address that, and you address it through zoning and planning. In 2011, there was a re-examination report. I don't think too many people, even in the planning profession, really understand them. They don't stand in or stand for a master plan. They sort of evaluate your master plan several years after it was first created to see if it's still relevant or if it needs to be tweaked or if it needs to be tossed. And in your 2011 re-examination report, one of the major problems that was identified was the substandard housing stock and the need for more housing. We have a substandard office building, no longer viable, but we are providing additional housing. It noted under existing conditions a need for underutilized sites to be redeveloped to increase ratables. That's this site in a nutshell. It's exactly what this applicant is proposing and what's before this board tonight. In 2017, now let's go over 2014 because it really dealt with a different portion of the township. But in 2017, the master plan, or the planning board, saw fit to prepare a new land use element. And it identified one of the major problems was a declining non-residential real estate base, the Amazon effect, and the empty office spaces. It also identified outdated zoning and the need to provide affordable housing. One of the big problems identified in that master plan land use element was the prevalence of vacant dead office space, creating a negative impact to surrounding neighborhoods. That's this site. They could have been writing about this particular site. And it goes on. After it acknowledges and mentions the difficulty these office buildings can create, it says, and this is, I think, unusual language in a master plan, and we write and read a lot of master plans. It said it was incumbent, there was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of reuse scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties. That's pretty strong language. It puts an affirmative burden on, it suggests there's an affirmative burden on the township to address them, and it addresses sites that fit our site to a T. It also showed there's a major demographic shift underway, creating a tremendous demand for multifamily housing. And I don't know what you want to call the young people out there. Millennials, Generation Y, Generation X, call them what you will. They're a generation that doesn't own things. They stream everything. They don't own cars. They Uber. They don't want to be bound to a large degree by a house that they own and are slaves to. So the demand for rental housing has gone through the roof. And I was wondering, this demand for rental housing, I hear it all the time, I hear testimony about it all the time, is a real thing in Teaneck, this demand for housing. So I went to the American Community Survey. It's a U.S. Census population, it's a U.S. Census publication, and they do surveys, and the one for 2017 has some interesting facts in it. It says Teaneck has about 14,000 housing units. It's a pretty big number. Your population is just a hair under 40,000. Your rental vacancy rate is 0.6%. You don't have any vacant rental housing in this community, according to the U.S. Census American Community Survey. 5% is considered a normal, healthy operating ratio or percentage. 5% people can move in and move out. People can sell homes or rent properties for what's considered market reasonable price. 5%. You're at 0.6%. That shows there's a tremendous rental housing shortage in Teaneck, and it is current data.
What date is that report?
2007, Mr. Chairman. 2017, I'm sorry. 2017, the rental vacancy rate was 0.6%. The census, of course, counts things. They count everything. The average household size in a rented occupied unit in 2017 in Teaneck was 2.38 people. Somewhere there's a theory that apartments are overwhelmed with people and there are people living everywhere in apartments. That may have been true one time in the past. It is not true today in Teaneck. Your average apartment has 2.38 residents. Are there some with more? Yes.
What size apartment? One bedroom?
It's
Or average?
It's average across the township. So that's to reference that the major demographic shift that's transforming Teaneck and was discussed in 2017 land use element is collaborated by census data. Going back to 2017 master plan land use element amendment. I told you earlier it suggested that there was a responsibility upon the township to evaluate zoning policies. It made a recommendation. It wasn't going to wait for the township body to act. It recommended that Teaneck capitalize on opportunities to recommended that Teaneck capitalize on opportunities to replace or redevelop aging, obsolete office buildings with high-quality, new, multifamily rental housing, providing a more diverse quality housing while simultaneously providing for significant new tax rate. Once again, we have on this site that aging, obsolete office building. The 2017 Master Plan Land Use Element recommended that those sites be replaced with quality, new multifamily rental housing. We are proposing 68 units of rental housing. It repeats the call to encourage expansion of multifamily housing. It also goes on and says that if multifamily housing was constructed in Teaneck, it would also help fulfill another master plan goal of providing for the fair share of affordable housing. It specifically talks about 10% affordable housing set aside. And I know the board's familiar with set asides. What that means is the developer would deed restrict 10% of the units, some one-bedroom units, some two-bedroom units, and some three-bedroom units for qualified low-income housing households, and the size of the bedrooms would be dispersed among family sizes. So a one-person household doesn't end up in a three-bedroom rental apartment. So the land use recommendation from 2 years ago was to have a 10% set aside. We're proposing 15%. So 50% more than what your master plan recommends. Now, land use element from 2006.
One second, talk about the co-op low-income housing. Wasn't there a requirement by virtue of the settlement with Teaneck and the state that you're required to put away 15%?
Yes.
Well, that's a requirement with the township. Neither the planning board nor the board of adjustment are party to that, and I do not believe there have been zoning ordinances to implement that. But we, regardless of the lack of an ordinance, and we all know that we have moved from a time of decision state where the ordinance is in place when a decision of a board is made, control, to we have moved to a time of application rule. And Mr. Madero can explain it better than I, but basically the ordinances that are in place when the application is filed are the ones that count, are the ones that are reviewed. And as of now, to the best of my knowledge, Teaneck has not adopted any ordinance which would provide for us to provide any affordable housing. Your master plan, though, in 2017, recommended that we do a 10% set aside. We're proposing to do a 15% set aside. Yeah, and for those who are concerned, or for some members of the audience who may be concerned that means that these are free-for-all apartments, it doesn't mean that at all. There are income guidelines published by the, they used to be published by the state, where if you're too low, you don't qualify. Too low in income, you don't qualify. And they have limits as to how much you can make or have economic assets, and then you don't qualify either. So it provides housing for a relatively narrow band.
And it's not administered by the developer or the builder. It's a third-party
Yes.
entity that will administer and give out or approve these low-income housing. Correct?
You're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. The township will most likely, and I say most likely because I haven't done it yet, but my experience with other municipalities, they'll hire something called an administrative agent. My client will pay for the administrative agent to work on this project. It won't be the township. And those administrative agents are all approved by the Department of Community Affairs. They will take all the applications for the affordable housing units. They will interview all the households. They will determine which ones qualify and which ones don't. And they will provide a list of eligible households. They will probably do a lottery, and they will determine who is selected to be in those affordable housing units. The developer will have very little to do about it except write the check, and the township, quite frankly, doesn't want to be involved because it's a bureaucratic nightmare. They want to hand it off to the administrative agent.
Just for the record, and for those who weren't here earlier, could you give a breakdown of the proposed affordable housing units?
Yes, and like everything else dealing with affordable housing in New Jersey, it's very bureaucratic. The requirements are that in this case, for the 68 units overall development we're proposing, 2 units have to be 3-bedroom units. 2 units, but no more than 2 units, can be 1-bedroom units. And the balance, which in this case is 6, 6 2-bedrooms. Right, so there'll be 2 1-bedroom affordable housing units if this application is approved. There'll be 6 2-bedroom affordable housing units if this application is approved. And there'll be 2 3-bedroom units.
So 2, 6, and 2?
2, 6, and 2, Mr. Chairman. 1, 2, and 3.
50%, 68 is 10.2, I have 2.2. Sorry. So the audience understands, 68 units, 50% is 10.2. What happens to the other 0.2? Goes into a fund.
Yeah, what typically happens, and I only said typical, Mr. Rosa, because Teaneck hasn't adopted an ordinance, will probably be asked to make a contribution for 2/10 of the unit.
To this fund that's administrated.
To an affordable housing trust fund, which is maintained by the township and used to basically rehab existing housing units in the township that are occupied by low and moderate income households.
Thank you.
Very briefly, I'm going to get off the 2017 master plan, but it talked about 3 key features that it wanted all new multifamily housing units to address. And one was they wanted special attention should be paid to facades of new buildings. We have complied with that recommendation. You've seen the architect describe and present the architectural plans. The building is beautiful. Affordable housing. It recommends that there's a
Back
good
one second, come back. You talk about facades, you're talking about the architectural appearance of the facade, right?
Yes, sir.
And subject to whose guidelines, to whose judgment, to
Ultimately, I suspect to the board's judgment. We, New Jersey, except maybe Cape May, really don't have architectural review guidelines. When we do guidelines, there are guidelines. I've seen a lot of multifamily housing projects go up. Fortunately, in Teaneck, especially down the street from us, I think it's a beautiful building. Some of them have not been so attractive. This building strives for a more open facade, and its use of colors and setting the facades at different setbacks. I think it's quite attractive.
Okay, so again, that's subject to the review of this board that you meet the guidelines, that the facade has to be aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, sir. The second thing it said that all new multiple family housing developments should have a 10% affordable housing set aside. You talked about that earlier. We're going to do that better by 50% and provide for 15% affordable housing. And I saved the best one for last, parking requirements. Now, this is a document that the planning board adopted in 2017. It observes that new, much smaller supply of off-street parking than what the residential site improvement standards would otherwise recommend. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about the residential site improvement standards when it comes to parking. The state of New Jersey, as small as we are, is a big, diverse state. Even the people at DCA who wrote the residential site improvement standards recognized that one size doesn't fit all. So, although when it came to engineering designs, and we heard about sanitary sewer lines earlier, we heard about stormwater designs. If you know how much area you have to accommodate, or how many units you're dealing with, you can figure out how big the pipe needs to be. And it doesn't matter if that pipe's in Newton, Teaneck, or Atlantic City. It's engineering, it's slope. Parking is different. So they made the parking recommendations. So, in 2017, your planning board said that multifamily housing in Teaneck will demand a much smaller supply of off-street parking than what RSIS, the Residential Site Improvement Standards, would otherwise recommend. And it went on to say why. It said occupants of newer multifamily residential developments in our area, again, meaning Teaneck, have much lower parking demands than called out in the RSIS document. This observation and recommendation by your planning board is borne out by the 2017 census data I referred to earlier. Fully 43% of your housing stock has one or no cars available to it. They say vehicles, I'll call it cars. That is township-wide. 1 or 0 cars for 43% of the housing stock. Now, as a planner who's been in this field a long time, I will suggest to you, in fact, I will tell you, that when they say 43% of the housing stock, they're not saying there's a 4-bedroom house someplace on Chadwick Lane that doesn't have a garage and a parking and a driveway. What they're really referring to are apartments.
Did you say how many rental units there are in town?
How many there are?
It's been 2017, so it's not including the new construction over the last 2 years. Understand that?
Mr. Roach,
I'm sorry. My question was, understanding it's 2017, and since 2017, there have been a couple of new buildings that have gone up on Queen Anne and on Windsor Road, and now in Teaneck. But in 2017, how many rental units do you have that figured whether in Teaneck?
In Teaneck, in 2017, there were 3,542 apartments. To give you the flip side, there were 9,774 owner-occupied housing units.
So you're saying, going back to your statement about rental vacancies, that 0.6%, I can't do the math, too late, 0.6% of approximately 3,500 rental units in Teaneck are properly vacant? Is that right?
It's 0.06.
0.6, sorry, 0.06, that's 1%, or about
Zero.
30 apartments in all of Teaneck? Is that
Yes.
You think that's an accurate figure?
Yes.
Okay.
You didn't ask, but I'll tell you anyway. The owner residential units. It's getting late, you're right, Mr. Chair. Units that are owned by their occupants.
Right.
The vacancy rate for them is only 2.6%. That means your housing market is twice as tight as a normally functioning operating housing market. On the ownership ones, on the for sale ones, there's not a bloody apartment available in Teaneck.
Okay, no, I think it's a valuable exercise for us to know and for the public to know exactly what is breaking down. So thank you.
And to put these numbers in context, I think these numbers may have changed a little from 2015, and I think they were probably reviewed by the planning board when it made some of the recommendations it did about multifamily housing. It recognized that there is a shortage, not just of affordable housing in Teaneck, but of ownership housing and rental housing.
And one more question, sorry. Getting an estimate of the projects that are either recently completed or under construction, would you say that's 1,000 units that are under construction now?
I don't have that number right in front of me. I think 1,000 may be high.
Yeah. Okay.
But even if it was 1,000 units, probably closer in that range, with the number of vacant units in the community, you still have a very low number of vacant rental units. Yeah, I think your estimate of somewhere in the 500 range is probably pretty close. So getting back to the parking requirements and the recommendations of the master plan and the report from the Census Bureau, Teaneck's traffic and parking consultant has reviewed this development and has concluded the amount of proposed parking is sufficient for the anticipated demand. That tells me two things. One, the applicant is providing sufficient parking, and your traffic and parking consultant is agreeing with the planning board's 2017 document that when it comes to multifamily housing, less parking is better than more parking.
Is that, are you referring to the Stonefield Engineering Design Report of February of 2019?
Yes. In fact, there's on the second page. Yes, on item number 6, the proposed municipal parking lot would be sufficient to support the RSIS guest parking requirement. Okay. So again, it's to minimize the amount of parking.
Mr. Lydon, sorry to interrupt you. So, I kept the study, it suggests suggest that a town like Teaneck may not need, as much parking as may otherwise be required. And I guess, again, that's what it says on the study on the paper. How do you reconcile that with, everyone in this room who actually lives here who would probably disagree with that? Because it sounds like the biggest concern is parking. I get this study, and but I'm just trying to, I'm trying to reconcile it with the reality of what people seem to be complaining about.
Two things. I think and time is probably the important factor. A lot of the developments that are older in Teaneck, just like they have stormwater management controls, did not provide for on-site parking of residents. So they could, if you will, if you look at the hundreds of units in this area, there probably is a deficit, no, forget probably, there is a deficit in on-site parking. That exists today, it exists yesterday, and it will exist tomorrow, whether this application is approved or not. I'm not going to tell the crowd or you, I'm a grove, anything else. How did we get there? We got there because certain properties did not provide any on-site parking. This applicant is proposing a partial solution to that. We are proposing 44 spaces across the street, which will generally be available to the public, reducing or increasing the supply of public parking. You've heard that the resolution requires that we restripe State Street. Right now it's got parallel parking spaces. It's got like maybe 70 or so, and a wide drive aisle, both east and west. By providing by going from parallel parking to angled parking, the number of stalls will greatly increase.
I thought Ms. Berger corrected the record that the striping wasn't important.
I think that the town changed that once we put in more parking on our site and did 2 levels of parking.
So is the striping operative or not?
No, it's my understanding the township did not want the change in striping.
Okay.
But that thought was when there was not 2 levels of parking.
I understand. I just want to make sure that we are clear on what's being required and what's not. Thank you.
On one side of the street, there is angled parking. Right, Mr. Lydon? On the northern side of the street, on State Street, there is in fact angled parking.
I was out there the other day, Mr. Chairman. I believe the parking may have been angled at one time. Yes, there is. There's parking there.
Thank you. I only drive that at least 3 times a day. But not on the southern side.
That's correct. No, it's north and south.
Well, only on the end part,
Yes.
towards Teaneck Road.
And just while you're talking about, how many street spots are there now?
There are 33 State Street. There are 33 on-street parking spaces on the north side, and there are 34 on-street parking spaces on the south side of State Street. No, on the street. Yes.
Okay, use the mic, please.
From Queen Anne Road to Teaneck Road, they're saying that there are 33 spaces.
On the north side of State Street, and there are 34 on-street parking spaces on the south side of State Street.
Okay, it seems low, but I don't know. That's what it is. That's what it is. Thank you.
And that's, you're right, because when you look at it, there are wide sections of State Street that don't have parking on the east or the west side. But the spaces that are there are as I indicated. So then to get back to your other question, what's happening now, and I don't know, I didn't do a demographic study of who's living along State Street, the Ayers Court, and that area, what their ages are, what their household composition is. But the new developments in Jersey City and Hoboken, which are not Teaneck, are providing at most 1 parking space per unit, regardless of the number of bedrooms. And oftentimes you're providing 0.75 or 0.85 because the younger generation is forsaking cars.
studies, they don't take into account any existing backlog of parking. I think that's what you said, right? It doesn't look at designs, design flaws for past buildings. It's just saying that if everything was perfect, a town like Teaneck would require less parking than another town. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment, and just to carry that thought a little bit further, we are not that far away from autonomous vehicles. My prediction. You're going to have autonomous vehicles as a service. You're going to want to go to dinner. You call up the car, you say you need the car at 6:45 on a Friday. It comes to your house, it takes you to the restaurant, it picks you up in 2 hours, takes you back. It's going to take a while for that to be accepted by everybody. But that's going to drive the parking demand much further south. And these numbers we're talking about today are going to be incredibly high in 80 years.
Mr. Lydon, I'll let you continue the testimony a little bit. I think we need to change the tape. Hold it, authority.
And good and welfare. At approximately 9 o'clock. According to the code of the township of Teaneck.
Mr. Barrows, please be quiet, otherwise you'll be moved. Please be quiet. I will do it. We working? Good, thank you. Let me just figure out some approximation of how long your direct is going to continue.
I hope not.
Maybe 40 minutes.
40 minutes more.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what?
So,
That's ridiculous. Yes, set up.
right, so I don't think we're going to finish your direct tonight. But I think if you want to take another, it's another 15 minutes.
Well, I'll let Mr. Lydon know if I feel he should stop at a certain point.
Yeah, well, there's a good place to stop so you can pick up next time. I think that'll be a good idea. And then I guess we'll bring him back.
Correct.
I also have the engineer left.
Yes. Oh,
He's down there. I have actually a question for him before he leaves tonight. So I want to recall him, but let's not take you out of where you are. So you continue until you find a break where you can break, and we'll put you on next time again. But I just need to ask the engineer a few questions before, and then we'll go to good welfare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's getting a little bit late. I'll try to speed it up a little bit.
No. Please don't speed it up. To us, take your time.
I'll-
Everybody gets to take their time. Questioning applicants, people who have questions for the witnesses, everybody gets to take their time. No speeding up, nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To get to what Mr. Roden asked me about, we talked about some new development going on. It's interesting what you said, what you did, because the 2017 land use element notes the recent multifamily housing approvals, but says there remains a need to identify further opportunities for the private market to develop vacant or underutilized sites to help in turning around the tax base.
Well, what would have been approved at that time? I'm sorry, again. What would have been approved by that time? The new building on Palisades, which was under construction, Teaneck, which was under construction.
Right.
The Avalon.
Sir, please, I'm sorry. In the back there, I know you're handing out. Please sit down. Please, unless you want to hand me something.
I'm looking for exact, I just want to get a sense of what that opinion was, what was on books.
One of them would have been 140 State Street, just to the west of this particular site,
Which is not built.
which is not built, but it was approved. 1500 Teaneck Road was not approved yet.
Okay.
The building you mentioned, which Avalon,
Windsor Road.
I think you're right, but also one on Palisade, which is the 8-story building, that had been approved, and I believe there was one south down by Pagoda, maybe?
So the planning board in 2017, understanding what was already under construction or was already on the drawing board, still saw a need for additional rental housing. Is that what you're testifying to?
Yes, Mr. Rosen, exactly.
Okay.
And they talk about turning around the tax base, and I know that's not an issue for you.
Outside our purview.
Right, but it's not the planning board, because they're a policy-making board.
That's a planning board issue. That's
Right.
correct. Your planner can talk about it, but it's not really taken from a land use zoning perspective into our deliberation and consideration.
You're right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So I started to think about some of the impacts that these developments that we're just talking about might have on the township and specifically the Board of Education. Because that's always an issue we hear about. We hear about, as planners, we hear about traffic and school-age enrollment. So the Department of Education has a website. They'll tell you the official enrollment levels for each school year. In the year 2009-2010, so the beginning of the decade, 4,162 students were enrolled in Teaneck schools.
How many again? 4,000?
162 students.
What year was that, Nancy?
That was 2009-2010. Yes. The enrollment for the 2016-2017 school year, which was the most recent one published, is 3,621 students. So if my math is correct, this decade has seen a reduction in student enrollment of 541 students. And it's been pretty steady decline. So that tells me the
Okay, that's public school, not including parochial school or charter schools?
that is correct.
Public school system, high school, junior high.
And preschool, yes. So since the decade started, the Teaneck enrollment has dropped by 541 students. Which leads me to my next thing, because people, board members always want to know, well, who's going to live in this building? And we don't know if it's going to be Bob Smith or somebody else, but we have a pretty decent idea by published data how many people are going to live in a single-family house of 4 bedrooms, or a low-rise apartment building, or a high-rise apartment building. Dr. Listigan out of Rutgers, one of the jewels of New Jersey, I don't mean Rutgers, I mean Dr. Listigan, did a study back, I think, in 1987. And it was for the North Jersey area, the northern portion of the country. It quickly became out of date, and there was a need in New Jersey, since that's where Rutgers is located, for a more specific study. So, using 2000 data, in 2006, they published what they called Who Lives in New Jersey Housing? And it was, I don't know, 40 or 50 pages of charts of different types of housing. He broke it down single family, low-rise, multifamily, garden apartments, mid-rise, high-rise. He also broke it down by size, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, whatever. He also broke it down by ownership versus rent. And we found quickly in the industry that the projections in Dr. Listigan's publication were high, certainly in the area of New Jersey. And there's 2 places that's not, by the way, full disclosure, Ridgewood and Fort Lee. But putting those aside. So finally, last November, Dr. Listigan got back to work and did a new study. And we're proposing market rate units, and we're proposing affordable units. And we have a certain bedroom distribution. So using our bedroom distribution for, I did 2 analyses. One was for the market rate, and we know how many units we have, and we know what the bedroom distribution is. And I did a second one for the affordable ones, the affordable units, because people always say, well, that doesn't include the affordables, and love to have 27 kids in there. The market rate housing, and there's 58 units of those, it's been a long time since I threw that number out, based on Dr. Listigan's documentation, which was published in 2018, and breaking down the bedrooms, 22 1-bedroom, 32 2-bedroom units, and 4 3-bedroom units. He would anticipate 3.14 school-age children to live in the development. So next I'll turn attention to
The whole development?
the 58 market rate units.
58 units, only 4 kids?
3.14, high.
3.1 kid.
3.14 children. So, school-age children. School-age children. So, then I looked at the estimates, projections for the low moderate income housing, the affordable housing units. there are 10 units. And he would project, based on the 2 one-bedroom units, the 6 2-bedroom units, and the 2 3-bedroom units, that there would be a total of 2.59, let's call it 2.6, school-aged children living in those units. So I take that estimate, and I look at the decline in enrollment, and I don't think school-age population is going to be a problem.
But I just want to make this correct. The chairman is getting into it. So you're predicting, based upon demographics and the population that's predicted to be both the affordable and not affordable, that there's likely to be 6 school-age children in this 68-unit development.
That is correct, Mr. Rosen.
And then also extrapolating to the point you're making about school enrollment, I think the point you're making, I don't know if words in enough, that Teaneck public schools are currently underserved and that could easily handle any increase in school-age children. Is that what you're going?
That's my conclusion, yes.
Is that a zoning concern from a zoning law perspective, something that we as the zoning board have to take into consideration in disapproving and approving an application, what the impact is on the school system? I don't think so.
I think you can.
I can. Am I required to?
No. No, you're not. The planning board, when they do the master
That's a
plan,
different story.
and the mayor and council, when they zone, need to take into consideration.
That's 2 different things. We are a quasi-statutory board. We have other obligations and requirements and things we must do and must not do.
And once again, you're right. But at some point in my testimony, I'm going to get to the negative criteria. And one of the things I want to point out in the negative criteria is that this building, on a dead office building site, is not going to overtax the school district. I also don't believe it's going to overtax the township in terms of population growth. I don't think a handful, roughly, say 150 people, 200 people, are going to have an oversized impact in a community of 39,000. And the traffic, it's interesting, you read traffic studies, traffic on State Street has gone down since the earlier application. They counted in 2015, they counted in 2017, the amount of traffic is getting down, which suggests the issue about needing parking has also gone down.
It may not.
Well, we know that counts went down.
Okay,
At least
that doesn't mean that people actually park there. It may mean that less people drive through there or go other ways.
That's true. One thing they may do is they may take some of the multiple bus routes that are available.
In other words, there are a lot of factors one can extrapolate that will result in less of a traffic on State Street. Correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes. I agree with that statement.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, do you think this is the appropriate time to stop so we can have the engineer or that?
Yes. Yes. There was one question I had for you, Mr. Lydon, regarding the greater impact. What about police, ambulance, fire department? I'm very personally
I
involved
know
in
it's
ambulance.
about the ambulance call. I believe the building's been designed with appropriate elevators,
I understand that too.
so that's a big plus.
Well, you can wait with that testimony. I just wanted you to address those issues, especially we have our finance officers here as well, and they are also interested in knowing that. So fire, TVAC, and the police department issue impact.
If I could just ask one question for you, because it's related to, it sounds like the master plan, makes this compelling argument for a development of this type. I'm just wondering, based on your experience doing this, do you know why, when there is such a compelling argument for this type of a development, why towns don't just change the ordinances so that it would be within use, as opposed to having to get a variance? Because I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is that this is the perfect development. So, I mean, I know you can't speak to Teaneck per se, but just based on your general experience, a lot of towns just, you know, follow through and make the relevant change to the ordinance.
It's a very good question. And I think part of it is that the planning board is the party responsible for doing the master plan. And they have certain things they would like to see. Typically, dealing with land use policy. There are a host of things a mayor and council need to deal with. First and foremost, of course, is the budget, personnel. It's a never-ending mirror, as borough attorneys will tell you. It takes some time for two things to happen. One, to build consensus, and two, to go through the process. And on that point, the affordable housing has been in New Jersey since '75. In 2015, the court gave towns 6 months to write housing plans and get them approved by the courts. We're still doing it. It's not a fast process, and because two different boards are involved, it takes longer. And that's why, as part of the reason why there is a variance procedure available to developers.
Okay, thank you. Just need to note for the record, Ms. Holmes has certified that she has read the two transcripts regarding this application for the meeting of February 21st and April 4th. And Mr. Lehman has certified that he has gone over the transcript from January 17, 2019 regarding this matter. So that's on the record. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Board.
So you are not excused except until the next meeting, and which I think we're going to schedule this matter for June 6th. It's going to be adjourned to, it may be then adjourned to June 20th at that time. Depends on the availability of your experts and your calendar and everybody else's calendar. So for now, it's to June 6th, without further notice to the public, and it's going to be most likely in that meeting will most likely be in the regular chambers where we normally are, in the township chambers. If it's going to be a special meeting, if it's going to get moved, we may announce, or if it's going to go, if this matter is going to go on June 6th, we might be back here. If this matter is going to go to June 20th, if the school is available, we don't know that, do we? It's graduation day? Oh, so it's not available. So it's going to be.
I can find out Monday. It could be the library.
Library, or you will find out. There'll be a notice about that, but there's not going to be a notice in the paper. It's so far. And a motion to have this matter moved for calendar purposes, or at least, or maybe to be heard. June 6th, in the regular chambers, or whatever, we're going to designate a place without further notice to the
7 p.m. correct?
What?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. or soon thereafter. All in favor? Any opposing? Hearing none. Okay. So that's the story. But most likely it will be June 20th. No promises made.
Just for clarification on the record, our first hearing was not in January. It was in
February.
it was February 21st.
February 21st, yes.
I understand. That's what I was. February 21st, and that goes for the Mr. Reedman's clarification. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I have a question for the engineer. Let's put it back on. So do you recall I raised the issue last time with respect to adding the 25 spaces at the rear of the property on the first level of parking, correct?
Yes, sir.
What is the dimensions from where the front line of the parking spot now to the end of the rear? Had you pushed it all the way through to the wall or whatever you call it? How many feet would that be?
Let me just understand. If I push this wall from the current wall to the property line?
Yeah, but you indicated that you could get 25 additional spots if you had moved that wall backwards to the rear of the line, to southern direction. Then from the original spot to the end of that wall, you said, if I'm not mistaken, you said there was more than spaces for 2 cars. Is that correct? There were greater length that it would house, to be able to park 2 cars there.
You asked if we could do tandem parking.
Yes, on the tandem. How long is that whole tandem?
From this wall to the property line. It's approximately 15 and a half feet.
Not from the wall, from the beginning of the space, original space.
From this space to the property line?
Yes.
It's about 34 feet.
And how long is a normal parking space?
Each space is 18 feet long.
So it would be more or less standard parking, correct?
Well, we would have to accommodate a full space, a 9 by 18 space. We would have to modify some of the striping along the front so you can get 18 and 18.
Okay, so we were maybe 2 feet short.
That's correct.
Now, the wall in the back that you talk about, does that have to go all the way up, or could it be half a wall?
It's basically, it's going to be a parapet wall for safety of the vehicles and basically the structural support of the deck itself. So it's not necessarily a full wall. It will be, I haven't designed it yet, obviously.
Right.
I would assume.
Yeah, could it be built as a half a wall where there would be some airflow?
I don't know, Chairman. That would be a question for an architect. I imagine I've seen parking decks that are partially open.
Would you be able to, behind the wall, if you pull it in a little bit, would there be room to some plantings? So it'll lessen the impact of this concrete wall to the neighboring property.
No, we would be right on the property line. There is no room.
Okay, but is it possible to move it in a little bit? With the configuration there?
Again, it's to move it back like we have at the low level, it'll be right on the property line.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Since you're back, I have a question. I think there was a fair amount of misunderstanding about the 8-foot parking spaces versus the 9-foot. Out of the total of 18 feet, can you tell us how much of the 8-foot wide parking spaces, what the length of the 8-foot width is?
The length?
So if it's 18 feet,
right?
You said the striping is still 9 feet. It's only at the rear of those spaces that's 8 feet, right?
I'll explain.
Yeah.
All the spaces are 18-foot length. All of them, okay? The striped parking spaces, if I'm looking at sheet C 4.01, the parking striping from stripe to stripe is 9 foot wide. At the individual column supports, that's about 2 by 2 columns. At that area, the stripe, the available space for car reduces by about a foot on this vehicle side and on the opposite vehicle side. So for a very short period.
So for 2 feet out of the total of 18, it's 8 feet wide.
That's accurate.
For the rest of that space, it's 9 feet.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes for tonight, at least 100 State Street. We're going to go to Good and Welfare. Ms. Berger, why don't you see if you can get out of here, because I'm sure you don't want to hang around for all that, and your experts and your clients and so on, so we can...
You know, that's they want her to leave.
Okay. So we're going to have Good and Welfare. I guess you can line up. Everyone wants to speak to Good and Welfare. I think you should give someone else a chance to start first. This young lady sitting in the front row. One second. But let's do the following. We're going to limit the comments or whatever Good and Welfare you want to talk about to 3 minutes. Please, no.
Just a reminder again, for those of you who attended, speak about this project, and you're going to welcome the
I'll survive.
First of all, you're not being sworn in. You don't have the opportunity to ask your questions. Go over the attorney. So I would suggest you are free to make whatever you want, but this is not a good time for you to be speaking about this application. You can't take it and use it as admitted as evidence, okay? I'm just not understand that.
As far as I understand, you can speak on anything.
Yes, you can, but I'm making the point for your own edification, for your own knowledge, that this is not a good or appropriate time to be speaking about this application, because it can't be taken as evidence. You don't have the opportunity to ask your questions. The attorneys don't have the opportunity to question. Normally, in our process, when you ask your comments about this application, we will swear you in the way the process goes. So if you intend again to speak about this application, it's not a good idea.
What, I have enough time.
Sorry, it's all right.
Make sure that we make, for the record, I believe the analysis of the law. This board understands there's a municipal ordinance regarding good and welfare, and we intend to comply with that ordinance. The public and the board should understand that there's also a municipal land use law that says that this board cannot take any testimony outside the scope of the public hearing. The public hearing just ended. Anything that anyone says on good and welfare about this application, you are allowed to hear the words, board members, but you cannot take it into consideration in your review of the application. So, board members, you cannot supersede the ordinance, nor can we stop people from enjoying the right to speak about this or anything else. But the public and the board should understand anything that is said about this application from this moment forward is not only not included in the record of the application, it cannot be considered as evidence by the board members. It is meaningless for the purposes of the application. However, if you want to say it, understanding that the board cannot consider it, we absolutely honor the good and welfare ordinance. I think that is why several board members have said to you, whatever you'd like to say now, it would be 1,000,000 times more valuable in the public hearing part at the end when you can say anything you want and it has to be considered as evidence. But we can't stop you from saying it. Board members, you are instructed to ignore it. Okay, that is my take on the law.
You're going to have to ignore one of them, because this is my first time coming out from one of these institute offices, and I don't know how we've come this far, that we can avoid a master plan, a building that was proposed to be 200 residents, and it was and that's not opposed. There's an attitude of congestion, particularly in the Northeast where I live, and it's crowding me out and my family. I ask you as a board not to consider space, but to consider human beings. I think we're being overlooked. The overwhelming development changes the nomenclature of our town. We can no longer be called a township. We are urban, suburban, with all the development that's going on in the Northeast. What happens to the homeowners? What happens to the seniors? And we're supposed to be an age-friendly town. This is very unfriendly, this development. And as far as the affordable housing units are concerned, to me, that's just chicken feed. 10%, 10 housing units, a lottery. It's a joke. I'm asking you to reconsider what you're doing in this township. It's very uncomfortable to live here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members, you understand my instructions regarding anything that was about the application. Yes. Well, to all the mic, please. Thank you very much.
We just heard, I'm going to make these comments are going to be general. James Veach, V-E-A-C-H.
Thank you.
These are general comments, but I'm going to key off the expert, quote-unquote, planner that the developer brought here to talk to you about Teaneck. You may recall that during his remarks, he talked about a 2007 master plan, and he talked about a 2017 re-examination of the master plan, and I believe his words were a strange beast. It is indeed a strange beast. In 2007, we had hundreds of residents who spent thousands and thousands of hours drafting a master plan. The re-examination is something concocted and cooked up by Joey Barber and the planning group. Re-examination, it reads like art of the deal. They're pushing rails. They're saying, build wherever you can. That's not a master plan. The master plan is 2007. I don't understand why anyone won't address this question. Why can't the developer live with the zoning code? This gentleman asked an excellent question. If the township council wants to turn Teaneck into Hackensack, why don't they just change all the zoning laws? Why don't they just say, we do spot zoning in Teaneck. We don't bother with zoning laws. We let the planning board do whatever they want to do. Why don't they do that? Well, I think it has to do with state law. These zoning codes are hard to change. So why can't this developer make enough money if he follows the zoning code? Couldn't he make enough money with 9 units? Keep the 30-foot setbacks on both sides. Keep the 30-foot setback in the front. Spare a tree or two. Leave a square inch of open space. Couldn't he make enough money that way? Thank you.
Mr. Beach, don't forget to give me the exhibits back.
Come right there. Any of that, which is in regard to the pending application, not during the public hearing on the application, has to be ignored.
My name is Howard Rose. R is in Rose, O is in Rose, S is in Rose. I want to thank you, Chairman Mayor, as well as the board for your time and service. I appreciate it. And you keep it an interesting evening. I have a couple of concerns that are general. One of which is microphone utilization. We all know that the microphones are terrible for you, for the planning board. Oh, let me first mention, I'm a member of the planning board, I'm a member of the Board of Education, and I'm not here representing either. I'm here representing myself as an active member of the community who works, plays, and volunteers for the community. At any rate, regarding microphones, we know they're terrible. I don't understand. I remember when we bought the last ones, which are these basically. Instead of buying ones that are headsets, that function with the head moving. Instead, many of us, I'm not castigating, I'm just criticizing. There's a difference. You sit with a microphone 3 feet away from you. You're reminded, you bring your lips towards it. You almost have to kiss these microphones. Then you lapse, and 2 minutes later, you're further away, you're really not heard. And it's a problem, so that's why you get the reminders. And I hope things change, and I hope council or the manager buys something new that's workable and usable and functional. Thank you. So, at any rate,
One of the things I'm concerned about, and I pose a question to both council as well as to this board, and I've spoken with members of the planning board regarding knowledge of the master plan. Some of the answers that I received were less than desirable. Some people had read it, some people had read portions of it, some had not read it at all, some were planning to read it, and it's a concern because zoning, ordinances, master plan, all tie in together. And the objective, I think, of anyone who's doing any kind of a request for a variance is that they're trying to get a project done, and I appreciate that, and I go with the optimism that they're trying to do the best as possible. They want to make a reasonable profit, they want to maximize the profit, and they want to adhere to rules and regulations as much as is possible. End result sometimes is, whoa, wait a second, what you're proposing doesn't measure up to what we expect, what we require. Consequently, the need for a variance. I hope that when you consider this, you consider not just what you're hearing from paid professionals, from people who are putting forth these projects, but you also give strong consideration to the public. And regarding the public, I read an article or a letter to the editor in the Suburbanite from last week, where a member, not identifying themselves as a member of the planning board, nevertheless spoke about an item and indicated that there was just 25 people who were making statements. Oh boy, I need another 2 minutes, but thank you.
My name is Ruth Brower, and I'm a member of the East Loading Neighborhood Association and a very long-time resident of Teaneck, and I've seen many changes. Many residents should remember the steering of home buyers of color to the northeast section of Teaneck. Now a repeat of this injustice has many similarities through systematic discrimination by the dumping of all of these rental apartments and the unrealistic granting of variances to these builders. An article from the Suburbanite Thursday, May 2nd issue made mention of the impact study to be done. A quote from that article, "The report may show this will completely revitalize the State Street District. Our homes and our lifestyles should not have to support the financial well-being of the State Street District. Hopefully, you represent all the residents of Teaneck and will come to an educated and fair decision. And I hope that all of you have visited this area that we're talking about and not just a rendering of it. I hope that you do not sell Teaneck to investors and think about the people who live there and who have been here for some time. Thank you."
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Say your name for the record.
Lillian Lewis, L-E-W-I-S. We now, and I'll be reading again at the end of the hearing. As one councilman says over and over again, when you come to these hearings, the Board of Justice should have the planning board in one hand and the variance in the other, and see how they compare. Okay, I want to first read from the State and Land Use Law, Article 9. It says, "No variance may be granted under the terms of this section, including a variance, including an inherently beneficial use, without a showing that such variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zoning plan and zoning ordinance." I'm going to go down to the next part, 40:55D-2, purpose of the Act. It is the intent and purpose of this Act to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which would promote the public health. That means having an outdoor play area for children. Safety, not overcrowding the area. Morals and general welfare. And then E, to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment, that is keeping green space. Going down to the master plan, as the planner just picked and choose what he wanted to read, this was proposed, of course it was 2007, and then proposed again in 2017, re-examination. Those preserve the character of existing low-density residential neighborhoods forming the predominant character of the township. And the objective, preserve and enhance low-density resident character of established neighborhoods. So what he was talking about was just the land being able to sustain the 68 units. But this is talking about preserving the predominant character of the township. And the predominant character of this township are single-family housing, not multi-family housing. The other thing I wanted to mention, he was talking about the 0.6% vacancy of the 35,000, what was that? 35,000 you stated. My numbers, I can't find the number anyway, but when you calculate that to 0.06%, it comes out to about 2 units of vacancy. Well, do me a favor, all of you, drive down Teaneck Road to Drawer and Teaneck Road and look at that complex there and count the number of vacancies. I assure you it's more than 2 vacancies. And the other thing, last thing, going back to the extended parking. Okay. All right. I'll be back next time.
Linda DiCarlo Burns, East Teaneck Neighborhood Association. So at our last meeting, East Teaneck. It covers roughly from Queen Anne to Teaneck, Ford, and this neighborhood. Okay. At our last meeting, right before you heard the State Street case, you had another case before you, which was regarding the expansion of the driveway. And you were questioning that person really, really carefully, and you were very, very concerned about the impact to the neighbor of this wide driveway. Compare and contrast. Here in the northeastern section of town, these variances that you're granting are impacting our daily life in ways that only people who live here are trying to tell you. We're trying to tell you it's congested, and we have numbers to support it. According to city data, the northeast section of town has approximately 8,000 people per square mile, but all of Teaneck, the rest of Teaneck, has about 6,000 people per square mile. And what that means is that the northeastern section of town is more congested, more populated than the rest of Teaneck. So to say that the northeast section of town should bear additional density without weighing the impact to the residents in the same way that you weigh the impact to the neighbor of that wide driveway, it seems unbalanced. That's why I was here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Denise Belcher. I'm a resident and a business owner here in town. I also serve on the it's BELCHER. In full disclosure, I do also serve on the planning board, and I am not here representing them in any way, but as a resident and a business owner. Also live in the North Teaneck Road area of town. I just am a little concerned about what's happening from the vantage point of many of the things that have already been said, mainly congestion. I know that there was quite a bit of discussion about parking and provisions that the developer is making, but for someone that owns a home in town, we see constantly people parking on streets along Teaneck Road And many of them probably may be Teaneck residents, but may live in other areas of town. Running to market even prevents some of us from pulling in and out of our driveways. So that being said, I know the developer, it sounds like he's trying to make provisions for parking, but I'm really concerned about what additional 68 units, these 68 units will have upon North Teaneck Road. So I ask that you take that into consideration. I know that the planner mentioned D5 and D6 variants. He mentioned that the property can support the variance, but I really question, can it truly support 12 variances to the extent that they are requesting? Also, I just want to mention that he mentioned that the demand for rental housing based upon the master plan. Well, I encourage everyone to read the master plan, and in particular, the reevaluation in 2017, and what it truly says. There was a lot of things that were not mentioned. And lastly, I just want to mention that the Stonefield engineering report that he referenced, what other impact does it have? Such as the impact not just on parking, fire, and police, but what impact does it have on our hospital and schools? I don't really feel that the report he gave on schools was comprehensive enough. He cited some Rutgers professors and reports, but how truly does it reflect the strain on our school? So lastly, I just want to say that... okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Board members, to the extent that that was directed at the pending application, it's not during the public hearing, you cannot consider any of those matters which were just said. Hello.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kate Davis, D-A-V-I-S. I wanted to speak in favor of the proposed development. I know you need to ignore everything I say.
Yes, indeed.
But the dead building on State Street has been a black hole in an otherwise vibrant heart of Teaneck, and I would love to see multifamily residents there to help bring more people to the area and revitalize what is really an eyesore. Thank you.
If you would like that to count, you will have to say it during the public hearing.
Good evening, Eric Horgan, O-R-G-E-N. Number one, we're wrapping up National Police Week this coming Saturday, May 18th. So I think the crowd should take a moment to recognize Sergeant Finley and Officer Lynch and thank them for their service. So I've been a Teaneck resident going on 21 years now, and I'll say this. If you're a developer, you gotta be crazy to come build in this town because the people here are so hostile. Times change, and it can't be the way it used to be. I've seen my property taxes more than triple in the 20 years that I've owned my home here in Teaneck. And anyone who's willing to make an investment to make the town better, to provide more and to do more, and to modernize where we are today, should be welcome in any kind of development whatsoever. If you drive around this town, many of the apartment buildings are old. They are run down, they are falling apart. I've had the privilege of being a life member of the ambulance corps. I've been in almost every single building in this town at one point or another. Many of them are not easy to navigate, to get into. You don't have elevators, they're old, they're crumbling, they're falling apart. So if we have someone who wants to make an investment in the township to put up a building, to put up a house, to put up a store, to put up a restaurant, a 7-Eleven, whatever it is, if they're going to put money into it and make that investment, we should, as a board and as a town, support any efforts here. Excellent.
Sean Hirshorn, Hirschhorn.
Mr. Hirschhorn, you understand, anything you say about the application, we have to ignore.
That's fine.
Okay.
As someone who's attended planning board meetings and zoning meetings, I think the town should continue to develop a true downtown area with ample parking. That being said, about 8 years ago, my wife and I, or at that time my fiance, were looking at apartments in Teaneck and Washington Heights and comparing the aesthetics of the apartments compared to the cost. The Washington Heights apartments were significantly better. I think adding to the apartments in town would force landlords and owners to improve the existing buildings and create better accommodations for its own residents, as well as improving general Teaneck. That being said, I also think that State Street is a very wide street that perhaps it should be considered making it 2 lanes in each way. Thank you.
Brian Dulitt, D-U-L-I-T-T. I lived in the Warwick apartments for 4 years, and I can personally attest to basically everything that Ben just said. I think the new development and the new development that is going on will both create new product, which will allow not only to reduce the cost, but also make the current owners of the projects that not projects, but properties that I lived in have to, compete with what's new out there. And I think that the new competition is great for Teaneck.
Thank you.
Hi, Elliot Clapper.
Mr. Clapper, you understand, anything you say about the application, we have to not listen to you. We have to ignore you. Still want to say it?
Yes.
Right on.
So I just wanted to come out and also thank board members for your time and service. I know it's not easy staying out here late and listening to everybody. I think that it's smart for towns to look forward and look how a town can be improved, both by adding money into different infrastructures, but also having private individuals invest into the community through development. I think it needs to be done in a smart way. I think this project sits in between two other multifamily developments. It's in an area that should be developed with these type of developments. I think that if you invest in your town, the town will continue to grow and create jobs and opportunities for people. More people will want to live here. More people will come to the town who want nicer things, nicer homes. As the person before me said, it'll cause all the other apartments in the area to be renovated and make them want to do these things as well. I think if you look at development in a smart way and approve things that make sense, it's really, really good for the town and all the residents in the town. Thank you.
Your next person, please.
My name is Michael Klatsky, K-L-A-T-S-K-Y. So tonight, I want to share something with the board that isn't necessarily related to this application. I recognize that you cannot consider anything.
I can't hear you.
I recognize that you cannot consider anything that I speak about for the application tonight. So I want to provide you with some high-level context of what's happening in the planning world that we're inside of. Recently, the Regional Planning Association is a consortium of 33 counties that make up our home. They did a project, the North Jersey Transportation Authority.
No one can hear you, sir. You're all
Can I hold it? Is that better? All right.
Almost kiss it.
Okay, I want to share something with you from a document released by the Regional Planning Association. Regional Planning Association.
And not too fast because the court will have to take you up.
So the Regional Planning Association, over the past few years, has recognized that there's been a critical housing shortage in our region. Our region has about 22 million people. Over the past decade, 4.6 million of those people have come of age. That's 23% of the total population is between the ages of 20 and 34 right now, and they're looking for a place to live. We're also fortunate that many people are comfortable aging in place, which means that there are no housing opportunities because all the houses are taken. And all the people, those 4.6 million people, are the children that grew up in the homes that currently exist, which means that we have a huge deficit Over the past decade, the entire region has produced 300,000 homes, 150,000 in New York City, and about 100,000 in North Jersey. I would tell you as a planner, I'm happy to be a planner. I did a lot of work with the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, with the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, NJDOT, New York City DOT, New York State DOT, and so on. But you're not here to hear about that tonight. What you're here about is the need for housing in the broader region. Now, zooming into our region, the area in question is known as the Plaza. Right? You all know about it. It's where all the apartment buildings are. West Englewood Avenue has no connection thanks to the developers in the 1940s who decided that it would not be worthy to put a street connecting to Bogart Street, which is the street in the East OT neighborhood, which means that people do not have anything to do with the folks in the East OT neighborhood because it's a 15-minute walk with out-of-direction travel, where if you were traveling the same distance to the north, to Ayers Court, it's a 2-minute walk. So that just doesn't happen because you're going to have to walk on Teaneck Road with speeding cars and buses, or on Queen Anne Road where there's parking lots by Bubble Dreams, the gas station, and the office building. My point here tonight is that this area exists in somewhat of a bubble. The northeast Teaneck area, which is more focused on Bryant School. Sorry. Thank you.
Anything on that which was in any way construed as testimony about the application, unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't matter. And anybody wants to say something here in the next?
I won't say anything about it.
Go ahead.
I'll try it with I debated about saying anything about this, but when I watched the attorney being escorted out of here with a police officer, I felt I needed to say something. At the last meeting, the lawyer was very rude to me. You know, first she was in my private space, then she started yelling at me. Near the end of the meeting, I don't know if it's because she was anxious, she picked up her stuff and she walked straight into me like this. She hurt me. Okay, I had surgery, back surgery years ago. I was up all night. I feel like today what happened, and maybe wasn't your intention, was something that we call implicit bias. She was walked out of here with a police escort. At the end of that meeting, one of the plainclothes policemen, and let me say this, I love our Teaneck policemen. I want to say thank you. At the end of our last meeting, one of the plainclothes policemen said to me, do you want to file a complaint? And I didn't. I should have. I heard somebody say I should have. And you know why I didn't? Because I live in Teaneck. I want to make this work. I'm actually not against that building. I'm just against how tall it is, and that there's not enough, and not, you know, that's the only reason why I came last time. But for me, for that to happen to me, and then, and my family's been here for 50 years, and to watch that she gets a police escort, that tells me that you think I'm worthless. And you know what, I don't know if I'm gonna come back another time, because I came back here to speak, I asked my question, I was supposed to be able to approach the gentleman from the planning, the planner, and he did it, and I didn't get a chance to. And I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be on vacation with my family the next time it's scheduled. But more importantly, I just want to make sure no other Teaneck person is treated the way I was, and devalued the way I was, while someone who behaved badly was valued. And that's all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roland Raggio. I'm a resident of Teaneck. There's been a lot of discussion this evening about demographics, about ratables, about parking spaces. But what hasn't been discussed is that the northeast section of Teaneck has been a long-standing middle-class community populated by primarily people of color. People of color that have been here for a long time. And the northeast section of Teaneck is having to bear the burden of this hyper expansion. The town can't accommodate it. They're trying to twist and turn so someone can make a profit. So people that can't find housing that want to be here can squeeze in here. We have multiple schools in this area. We have children that have to cross streets. You have developers saying, oh, well, the population is going down. The population is going down throughout the country. But that doesn't mean that the existing children that are here don't deserve to have an opportunity to cross streets safely, to get back and forth to school safely. We're talking about a decrease in population within the public school system. We have not addressed the increase in the student population in non-public schools. They also need to be transported safely. I would also like to talk about the way these meetings are handled. It is absolutely deplorable to see the way the chairman, Mr. Myers, addresses people. Disrespectful, rude, and dismissive. There is no place for this in our community, and something really should be done about this. In all the years that your behavior, Mr. Myers, it's absolutely atrocious. And with that being said, there are other things that can be done with 100 State Street. Think about the people in this community. Provide services for the people in this community. You're not taking care of the residents who are already here that you want to continue to expand, and you're doing it off the backs of the people that are already here. If you want to expand Teaneck, then distribute that burden across the entire town, not just one section. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Can we have all the board members turn off their machines and focus on those speeches in here?
Powers, Teaneck, I want to talk for a minute about something that you folks did in 2013. You had a series, a long series, 2013. It was in the fall of 2013, you went through a long process in which the applicant developer told you a bunch of different things about his own problems in going in and picking up a piece of property that was some light industrial. And he wanted to put up 128 residential properties on a light industrial property. And you folks went through a lot of process, and it's unclear to me why that change of use was actually permitted, except that the developer chose not to take his application to the planning board and then to his zoning process and get the thing zoned as if it was a residential property. And you folks went ahead and finally approved it, and in May of 2014, Council passed the developers agreement, which had a 2-year limit on how long it would be before that had to be completed and the occupancy completed and the way in which occupancy would be granted. That property came back to you in 2015 for a major change, even after the developers agreement. Came back to you in 2017 for a height increase. And guess what? It is 2019, 3 years after that was to have been completed under the developers agreement, unless there was a re-evaluation by this body and by the council to have had come forward. My point about this is that this whole business of providing dramatic variances has a very strange output in terms of what's happened in this town. I drove by that today. There's a 60 car parking lot on it, and guess what? There were 8 cars there. We only have 4 of those 7 or 8. It's a little unclear. 7 or 8 residential levels approved for even temporary
occupancy. The other 4 aren't approved yet. And there's all kinds of rumors all over town about what's happening. It is important for you folks to think about how it could be that something you approved in 2013 has proven to be so much in violation of the agreement it had with the town. Thank you very much.
Next, please. Good evening.
Mickey Cheyenne, Teaneck. Okay, S-H-I-L-A-N. Mickey, M-I-C-K-I. They call me Shalane, but it's really Shalane, yeah. Anyway, I've been living in this town over 50 years and I've seen many changes. Right now I represent a couple of thousand seniors that are living in this town and don't know where to go if they sell their homes. They find that the buildings that are going up, the rentals, are very high. We remember years ago what things cost, and they still feel that way. One of the other things is I spend a lot of time at the senior center, Palisade Avenue, and I listen to those trains going by, idling, going by, you can't talk. And how many of them, you have 2 major developments right by the railroads, and you think people are going to come in and drive around the streets in those potholes and say, wow, I'm going to live near the railroad. So I don't know how fast you're going to sell those apartments, but again, you really have to consider things that are going on in town, and the residents are really very unhappy with what's going on. So think about it. The railroads, the noise, the potholes. If you keep building, we're going to sink. I'll tell you that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roosevelt Sills. I've been in Teaneck about Sills, S-I-L-L-S. You know Dallas Sills? Not really. Maybe. But anyway, I've been in Teaneck 39 plus years, and this is a place that I love. I often tell on the community scholarship board, and I go to the high school, I talk to the children, and I told them I was in the military for 30 years, and everywhere I go in the world, you know how well Teaneck is highly spoken of. I'm here just to say I'm not against, I'm actually development friendly. But one thing I'm concerned about, that our master plan is, to me, means safety and also means quality of life. I have lived in an area, I have lived through an era where there have been crises, where there have been many people in such a small area where there was a crisis, we had to move people out. And I probably would recommend to our leadership, who I really believe in leadership because I was in leadership for many years in the military, that we need to take a look at our evacuation plan. Something really happened in the Northeast with a large number of people, whether a fire or some crazy happened on the train tracks or whatever, however we'll move these people to, and that is the most compact area in the Northeast. So we need to look at that, and we need to consider quality of life and safety as one of my #1 priorities. And I'm also on the senior advisory board, I'm speaking as a resident. Thank you very much.
One question, please. What branch you serve in?
Command Sergeant Major.
Well, Mr. Sills, if you want to come back at the next time this is on, or when the hearing is over, and you can talk as part of the hearing, it would make its way into the public record.
Thank you very much.
Next, sir.
My name is Keith Kaplan, K-A-P-L-A-N. One of the attorney and chair for laying out the rules for people. I know there's been some confusion in the past. I'm only going to tangentially touch on the area because I want to talk about something Mr. Rose brought up about people not really understanding the master plan in its total context. I am one of the people that read the master plan, and I read the amendments and passed many of the re-examinations when I was on the planning board. And the context of the master plan dovetails with the zoning that the town has passed since we were incorporated in 1895. I won't bore you with the entire history, but from the 30s to the 40s, this area in particular by State Street was sold, parceled off, and zoned. In 48, when the original zoning that's at issue here was brought up, the owner of the north side, Mr. Stanley Ford, came forward, and he didn't understand why the zoning was being put at this level when the apartments just down the block, if you go by Lozier Place, are already 5 stories high. He owned the property, he felt that it would be a problem for him. This is what the council said when they were passing ordinance 878, and it's an important ordinance. I'll get to that reason in a second. He said if we didn't have apartments in town, this is Councilman Kuhn, there's a quote, he thought it would benefit the town as a whole. Also, if the ordinance is discriminatory, relief could be found in the courts. The mayor, Mayor Brett, stated that this ordinance was probably not perfect, but that it was a step in the right direction, that the council were honestly trying to do what's best for the township as they see it, and if it does need a revision, there's a board of adjustment and the courts. This ordinance 878 not only set the zoning, but it created the board of adjustment for Teaneck. And specifically this zoning, which was contemplated in the context of the master plan Mr. Rose brought up, specifically talks about the idea that certain properties are not going to fit neatly into zoning. After all, if every property fit neatly, we don't need a zoning board. We can just look at whatever the zone is. We can look at but what we're trying to do here is meet the goals of the master plan, which state that in multifamily zones, we use the multifamily zone approach as opposed to shifting multifamily zones into other sections of town. Now, Dr. Haggerty, who's also on the council, thought the fact that the council had established in this ordinance a board of adjustment indicated that they did not expect it would be perfect and problems would be brought before this board. That is the context of the original ordinance that was September 7th, 1948.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening.
Joshua Spears, longtime resident in Teaneck.
Senator, that's
S-P-E-A-R-S. I like the protocols. Granted, I know I can't address directly the thing from the hearing, but I will be back next month to do this again.
That's the way.
Yes, but I would caution you about one thing. Something my dad told me years ago. Said, figures can lie and liars can figure. Be careful what it is you listen to, where you get your facts from. With the ADA, I used to sit on the board in town when the ADA was first came out years back, decades ago, and I just looked it up. I was sitting back here. The size of those parking spaces are not correct. Okay, you can look it up yourself.
Take it up
2015 to 2010. 2015, 2010. Department of Justice, 88 regs, section 208 and 502 gives you the size of your parking spaces. So I have to say that.
Thank you, sir. Please bring it up with the line next time.
I will.
Good evening, Mark Schwartz. I'll be quick. I wanted to speak to Mr. Beach's comment about the planning board as it relates to the 2007, SCHWARTZ, Mark Schwartz. I wanted to speak to his comment about I don't believe the word is ignore, but don't pay attention to the 2017 board master plan examination, the Joey Bonner show. Focus on the 2007. I know the 2007 master plan. I know the 2017 master plan because I sat here and I wrote it. I sat there and I wrote it at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was also in 2007 chaired by Joey Bonner. Mr. Rose, myself sat on the board. So to sit here and say, ignore the 2017 master plan, which was a Bonner show, he also wrote the 2007 master plan. And I urge you, if you have more time tonight, maybe, because it's only been a few minutes, to read the 2017, which is 10 years after the 2007. 10 years in New Jersey, where almost every single municipality has built multifamily housing. 2017 was a different world than 2007. Read the 2017, read the 2007. It'll talk about what really needs to be in Teaneck.
Thank you. Next person. Please go ahead. This is the last person.
Yeah, it's Jeff Ostroth, O-S-T-R-O-T-H. I remember seeing a TV show a while ago where a lawyer in some trial made some statement and the judge said, the jury is instructed to ignore everything that was said. The lawyer turned to his client and said it would take brain surgery for them to ignore everything. Now that was a cynical lawyer, but there's a kernel of truth, and it points to the preposterousness of the board attorney's instruction to ignore. This is not this is not evidence that's being in here. These are expressions of opinion and expressions of feeling. And I would hope that it will go into your ears and into your consciousness and into your consciences. Now, as far as the thing about, yes, we know there's a purpose of variances. It is to adjust for these little problems. These are wholesale variances, extreme variances that are not intended to adjust, they are intended to nullify the master plan.
Board members, one says, I'll speak if you want to ignore me. Question is, what if everybody does that? If everybody goes to Bischoff's and orders rum raisin ice cream, some people get ice cream.
Mr. Soto, please stop. Mr. Soto, step down from the microphone.